The Battle of Eckmühl, fought on the 21st of April to the 22nd of April 1809, was the turning point of the 1809 campaign, also known as the War of the Fifth Coalition. Napoleon I had been unprepared for the start of hostilities on the 10th of April 1809 by the Austrians under the Archduke Charles of Austria, and for the first time since assuming the French imperial crown had been forced to cede the strategic initiative to an opponent. Thanks to the dogged defense waged by the Third Corps, commanded by Marshal Davout, and the Bavarian Seventh Corps, commanded by Marshal Lefebvre, Napoleon was able to defeat the principal Austrian army and wrest the strategic initiative for the remainder of the war. Strategic situation. Operating over a 50-mile front, from Regensburg to Pfaffenhofen, marked by stretches of rugged, wooded terrain, neither the French nor the Austrians had developed adequate intelligence about their opponent's strength, dispositions or intentions. Assuming that the bulk of the Austrian army was deployed so as to cover their bridgehead at Landshut and the main highway to Vienna. On the 20th of April 1809, Napoleon launched most of his army in an attack to the southwest. The resulting Battle of Ebensburg was a clear French victory, following which Napoleon ordered all but Davout's Third Corps and Lefebvre's Seventh Corps to pursue and destroy what he thought was the remains of the Austrian army. The French attack, however, had only split the Austrian army, separating its left wing, composed of the V Army Corps, VAK, and 2 Reserve AK, from the balance of the army. 2 Corps, 3 AK, and a VAK, were withdrawn by Archduke Charles to the north, forming a 9-mile line from Erbach on the Danube to Eckmühl on the Gross Laber. More importantly, unbeknownst to Napoleon, the Austrians gained a victory of their own on the 20th of April 1809, by surrounding and capturing the French garrison at Regensburg and its strategic bridge over the Danube. The capture of the bridge at Regensburg allowed Charles to re-establish contact with his right wing, General der Kavallerie Bellegarde's IAK, and FZM Colorats 2 AK, hitherto separated from the rest of the Austrian army by the Danube. Battle plans. With the seizure of the bridge at Regensburg, Archduke Charles no longer needed to defend the Landshut bridgehead, and instead moved to concentrate his remaining forces so as to envelop and destroy Davout's corps. FML Prince Friedrich of Hohenzollern-Hechingen's 3 AK, and FML Prince Franz Serif of Rosenberg-Orsini's IVAK, were ordered to hold the Austrian left, pinning in place Davout's corps, while FZM Johann Collorat's fresh 2 AK, and the elite grenadiers and cuirassiers of GDK, Prince Johann of Liechtenstein's I Reserve AK, advanced south from Regensburg and deployed against Davout's exposed left flank. Inexplicably, no orders were issued to GDK, Count Heinrich von Bellegarde, so his powerful IAK remained on the north bank of the Danube and played no role in the subsequent fighting. For his part, Napoleon was intent on enveloping and destroying the Austrian forces retiring southwest to Landshut and its bridge across the Isar. The 2nd and 4th Corps were directed to cross the Isar upstream from Landshut and block the Austrians from crossing to the south bank. Meanwhile, under the overall command of Marshal Lannes' Provisional Corps, the 7th Corps, a division from 7th Corps and 2 cuirassier divisions were to closely pursue and destroy the defeated Austrians. The mop-up of what Napoleon thought was a curtain of 3 regiments was left to Davout, even though more than half of the 3 Corps' original units had been detached to create Lannes' task force. Despite Davout's reports to the contrary, Napoleon ordered him to attack the Austrians on his front in the morning, with the proviso that Lefebvre's equally depleted corps would support him if he needed help. The 22nd of April, the leading elements of the Austrian attack ran into Montbrun's determined cavalry, who managed to reduce the impetus of the charge thanks to hilly and wooded terrain. Austrian General Rosenberg displayed serious concern when he realized that Davout's troops were not moving to account for the ongoing battle, and rightly assumed that more French troops were on the way. These troops had, in fact, arrived and brushed aside Rosenberg's flank guard. Napoleon had set the French army into motion around 2 a.m. The vanguard of the assault were the German troops under General von Damme. These soldiers stormed the bridge at Eckmühl and even captured the town's chateau after ferocious Austrian resistance. At this point, Davout launched his men against the Austrian centre at the village of Unterlechling in the woods to the north. The famous 10th Leger Regiment became involved in vicious fighting around the woods, but eventually was strengthened by Bavarians under De Roy and managed to capture the positions north of Unterlechling. Davout's troops under Louis Friant and St. Hilaire steadily pushed back the defenders of Oberlechling and the surrounding woods, overran a redoubt held by Hungarian grenadiers, and prompted Charles to order a general retreat. The struggle now devolved into a series of major cavalry clashes as the Austrians attempted to extricate their army without losing too many prisoners. Perhaps the best cavalry in the Habsburg army, the Vincent Chevaulegers and the Stipsic Hussars, occupied the Bettelberg ridgeline between Eckmühl and the woods above Unterleching. These elite units demolished some German light cavalry before being stopped by Bavarian infantry. Napoleon was insistent on the immediate capture of this position and ordered forward 2 heavy cavalry divisions under St. Sulpice and Nansauti. These horsemen were pummeled by Austrian artillery but came on nonetheless and managed to sabre the gunners after having seen off the enemy cavalry. The first phase of the retreat ended, but it was not over yet. The Austrians had found a choke point in the road and were instructed to stem the French tide. 3 French cuirassier divisions supported by additional German light cavalry attacked and a swirling melee developed. The Austrians fought heroically but were heavily outnumbered and had to retreat. During this part of the conflict, more French cavalry struck in the flank and the remaining Austrian horse fled north to Ratisbon with great celerity. Aftermath: the French had won the battle, but it was not a decisive engagement. Napoleon had hoped that he would be able to catch the Austrian army between Davout and the Danube, but he didn't know that Ratisbon had fallen and thus gave the Austrians a means of escape over the river. Nevertheless, the French inflicted 12,000 casualties at the cost of just 6,000, and Napoleon's speedy arrival witnessed an entire axial realignment of his army that permitted the defeat of the Austrians. Subsequent campaigning led to the French recapture of Ratisbon, Austrian eviction from southern Germany, and the fall of Vienna. Napoleon is alleged to have remarked of the series of maneuvers that culminated at Eckmühl, "It was the finest that he ever conducted."